what it means to be prepared. So, in terms of being prepared, you should know how to respond to severe weather, whether that be hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, extreme cold, floods, or even terrorism. You should be ready with at least something to keep you going for at least 3 days. If you live with a family or live in a household with multiple people, you want to make sure you have enough items for every single person for at least 3 days. Because you can never predict how long these emergencies may last, and you want to make sure that you have your own shelter, first aid, food, water, and sanitation. Yes, medicine, of course. And in terms of a disaster, there can be, you can call 911 and try and get an operator to speak with, say, hey, there was an earthquake, what am I supposed to do? But during an emergency, most 911 responders are going to be busy. There's going to be an influx of calls. Everyone in the area is going to be calling that number, and it will take time. You're going to be too busy. You're going to be responding, doing rescue services. So 911 isn't always the best answer to an emergency situation. You want to have other options, other resources, other ways to make sure that you and your family are prepared. So what do you got? Have you guys ever heard of 211? The number 211, yeah? You know 211? Yeah? So that's good. I'm glad we have someone who knows 211. So 211 is a number that I always recommend everyone remember the number 211. It's like 911, but it starts with a 2. Essentially, during a moment of crisis, or even now, let's say you're at home, you're trying to prepare items for an emergency, you can call 211 and they'll let you know where your nearest evacuation center is, a shelter, where to get resources. And during an emergency, if you need access to shelter or resources, they'll tell you where the nearest place to get them is. Being prepared is also really good for your mental health. You're not going to be too worried about like, if an earthquake hits, what am I going to do? Is there something I can do? Or you don't want to have the mentality of like, oh, if I'm stuck in my house, well, there's nothing I can do. During an emergency, it will cause stress, anxiety, and even before an emergency. But by having things prepared, knowing that you have a plan ready to take on these emergencies, whether that is staying in your home or having to leave your home, you'll know that you're ready for yourself, for your family, for your community. So we live in California. What even is there to prepare for? I think, throughout my whole life, I've lived in California my entire life. I've got a few earthquakes, but I've never experienced a big earthquake. They've all been really small. It's like, oh no, my glass moved a little bit. Nothing else happened. But in terms of emergency, there's a lot of other types of emergency you have to keep in mind. I mean, California, there are, we call it home. I call it home. A lot of you call it home. But at least like 38 million other people call California home. It's one of the largest states in the entire country, yet we're the 7th least prepared state in the entire United States. For being the most populated, we should not be so unprepared. So this initiative is to kind of get California ready for any type of event that might occur. So like in case of fires, in 2023 so far, according to CAL FIRE, we've had at least 457,000 fires total. And in terms of wildfires, it's burned up to 312,739 acres of land of just wildland. That's 236,000 football fields. But in terms of other fires, you can see from the graph that's over here, this is the different types of fires that people kind of deal with on a daily basis. We have wildfires, structural fires, we have medical fires, which I'll explain right now, which is all the way up here. Crazy number. I rewrote it twice because I didn't know that. I was like, no way, but yeah, medical fires. 300, that's almost 350,000. Then we have hazmat, law enforcement, public service. So what these basically signify is different types of fires. So we have like structural fires, that's like when a building catches fire, or wildfires, that's when lightning may strike and it starts a little fire in the wilderness. But I'm gonna focus on these medical fires right now. So a medical fire is when hospitals report cases of injury due to fire. So that's like if you're cooking at home, you use a little bit too much grease, it starts a fire. Or messing around with fireworks, someone goes into the hospital because they're messing with fireworks, started a fire, they got burned. Most of these don't lead in death, but there's at least 350,000 cases of fire emergencies in California alone. So that's something to keep in mind. You want to make sure that you have items to remedy that, to take care of yourself during a fire if you get burned or something like that. We also have flooding to worry about. I don't know, have you guys ever gone driving on the freeway when it's heavy rain and you see those big puddles of water and you have to drive through it and your car kind of floats like a little boat? Yeah, so that might be a small example of what a larger flood can be like. California almost never gets rain. We just got out of a drought, but this year and earlier last year, we've gotten a record amount of rain that California was just not prepared for, which caused small flooding in some neighborhoods, flooding on the freeway. I know my commute to work was crazy. People were driving, like crazy on the other side, hitting those big puddles, getting my car all wet, and back and forth. Just a mess. But you want to make sure you're prepared for these floods. These floods can cause damage to your home. They can make it difficult for you to leave your house. And if you're not prepared with supplies for multiple days, you might just be stuck at home. And that's when you can call 211. They may send resources your way. Right? And then earthquakes. I mean, we all know about earthquakes. That's what California is famous for. You can't really predict an earthquake. It's an imminent threat, but what you can do is make sure that you're prepared. In terms of being prepared, you can kind of look up what area you live in to know what you're at risk of. If there is an earthquake and it causes structural damage to your building, you can know a way to evacuate that area and make sure you're in a safe place. You want to make sure your shelves and items that are on high shelves are secured and that they're not in a place where they may fall on you. Just get prepared. So this is a little map that I got from one of Cal OES's resources. You can have access to this as well. This is called myhazards.caloes.california.gov. Anyone can access this website. And on this website, you can look up your address. I did us a favor of looking up where we are right now, Mid-City. So Mid-City, we're relatively fine. We're in a relatively secure zone. But around us, you can see, we have fault lines. That's the purple. The fault lines are where, how many of you guys have heard of fault lines? You guys know what a fault is? Fire. No, not a fire. Anyone? Oh, okay. I think. Yes, right there. Yeah. So it is where the ground splits. It's the fault lines of California. So that is where you have tectonic plates, and they rub against each other slowly over time, causing built-up pressure, which can, suddenly rupture at any time and cause these major earthquakes. So these purple lines are all the fault lines in the general area, and you want to make sure you're aware. If you live next to a fault line, you can, make sure you're prepared, know where to go, what to do, make sure your home is prepared for a major event like this. And then, so these green areas here, these are liquefaction zones. That's a big word. So liquefaction zones, essentially what it means is, so we have ground, and during an earthquake, it'll start shaking, and it'll shake so much that the ground will kind of become like quicksand, and it'll just suck up like buildings and large objects. Total mess. And then we have the red, which signifies the fires, and then the intensity of those fires. And that's just in the Los Angeles area. This goes over the entire state of California and what exact emergencies there are. If you look here, we have this grid area. This is where, like, since there's tsunamis. This. Letting some people in. Sorry about that. All right, next slide. All right, so what does California do to prepare? You know, we're a big state. We have a lot of local government, a lot of community-based organizations that are working hard to make sure that California as a state is ready to take on any of these challenges. We've created response plans. You can go online and look up the exact response plan that the state of California has in case there's an emergency. They have evacuation routes, shelters, spaces that are designated to be shelters in case there's an emergency, vehicles, and a volunteer staff that are ready to take on these emergencies when they happen. We also have preventative measures that try and stop the spread of fires, try and make sure we're prepared for an earthquake, prepared for a flood, really things put in place to make sure that we're safe. And we also have developmental programs that educate the community and the public on how to prepare themselves individually. And that's what we're trying to do today, trying to educate. So, did you guys get that alert a few weeks ago? Anyone, everyone was just hanging out and then your phone went beep, 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 for no reason? You guys remember? Yeah, you guys remember? Yeah, so that was an emergency alert. That was a test emergency alert. And so that is actually a part of the WEA system, which is the Wireless Emergency Alert System. So the Wireless Emergency Alert System was launched in 2012 and has been used over 84,000 times to warn the public on dangerous weather, missing children, and other critical situations. And so in time of an emergency, the WEA system will alert you and let you know that there's an emergency coming. It can be flooding in your area, it can be a down power line, an outage, tsunami warnings, and so on. These can be critical in situations where you might not know exactly what's happening. You might be having a great day at the beach, your back is turned, and a big wave's coming, you get the alert, you're like, oh, there's a big wave coming. And you get out of the area. We also have preventative measures. So like to fight wildfires, what does sheep have to do with fighting wildfires? Why do I have a picture of sheep? In the Santa Barbara area, there's a lot of growth because of all this rain that we had. A lot of vegetation growing, a lot of plants, flowers. And it's beautiful during the time, but that dries up. That vegetation, that sudden growth, it dries up and becomes fuel. It becomes fuel for fires. And it can spread through the area. I don't know if any of you guys have heard of the Ventura fire that happened not too long ago. That was a huge fire that took a lot of homes in that area. And so to prevent things like that from happening again, the Channel Island Restoration got a bunch of sheep, I think at like 300 something sheep, and they just take over the area and they eat all that vegetation, which is proven to not just destroy some of the vegetation that's invasive in the area, but it's also stopped the spread of fires. On a few occasions, there have been fires going in the area that these sheep graze in, and they stop and allow for firefighters to take out that fire without it spreading with that vegetation. And aren't the sheep just so cute? And we also have disaster education. That's what we're really doing today, is making sure that we educate you guys on what exactly to do, what to keep in mind when preparing for an emergency situation. There are government organizations that help provide education to organizations like us, and as of now, we've helped teach up to 1 million people on disaster preparedness, and we're trying to get that number up. Trying to get 38 million people educated on disaster preparedness. And it's important because when thinking about disaster preparedness, it's not just about leaving the area, making sure there's a go bag. It's about thinking for yourself as well. Authority can't always keep in mind what other people are going through. Some people have mobility disabilities or sensory disabilities. They might be blind or just can't see from one eye, making it hard for them to navigate the area. They might not even they might be deaf. How are they going to get an emergency alert? So in cases like that, it'd be important to get information in Braille or have alerts that vibrate so that you can get them. There might be individuals that don't have transportation or access to transportation. And during an emergency, local transportation might not be available. So to make sure that you have a way to get to an emergency shelter during an emergency is important. It's also important to get this information out in multiple languages. This course isn't just going to be in English, we're going to do it in Spanish and Korean, and I want to make sure that everyone of all languages gets the materials they need to get prepared, no matter what language they speak. It's also important to make sure that people with illnesses that need medication know how to be prepared during an emergency. There might be an earthquake, or you might need to evacuate your home, and you don't have time to grab your medication. And in a time like that, how are you going to get your medication? So that's why we teach you how to get prepared and make sure that you have these items when you need to evacuate your home, or how to get a hold of these items after you've evacuated. And so far we've had a lot of progress in this. We've built resilience among high-risk populations that are susceptible to natural disasters. And by continuing to spread this message, we want to continue to educate and get people prepared, make go bags, set up alert systems, make sure that they have contact lists, make sure that they're ready. And I would like to introduce an associate of ours. His name is Paul. He's from the organization CORE. He's going to be speaking for a bit on the importance of disaster safety and how to exactly get prepared and what this course holds and what exactly we'll be doing for the next couple of months. So if you guys can give a hand to Paul.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Paul. I'm so grateful to be here. I am a fellow with the organization called CORE as part of their Climate Emergency Response Corps. So basically, I'm here to introduce the community to disaster preparedness and help people get a general understanding of what it means to be prepared and the steps that they can take. So today, I'm going to be presenting our workshop number 1. And this is going to be on the 5 key steps to preparing for an emergency and a natural disaster. And this is part of our workshop series for disaster preparedness for older adults. So we're really targeting this towards your population. So this workshop is going to be very, very simple. We're going to just introduce, who CORE is in one slide, and then I'm going to go over a general understanding of the 5 basic steps to disaster preparedness. And these are going to be the things that I want you to really take away from our presentation today. So, who am I? Who's CORE? What do we do? Why is it important for us to be doing this work? So, we are a crisis response organization that responds to disasters all around the world. We bring immediate aid and long-term recovery solutions to marginalized communities and those people who have been severely affected by any kind of natural disaster. And as you can see here in my slide on the right, you may be able to see some little glowing blue dots. These are all the places that CORE has served over and supported over 9 million people worldwide. Some of our past efforts include being part of the response team for the Turkey-Syria earthquake that happened a few years ago, the California floods that recently happened and ones we've had in the past, the Pakistan floods, the Ukrainian situation, and of course COVID-19. We were quite active. Some of you may even have gotten tested at the sites. I know I got myself tested at the work site before I even knew the work. So we've really been all over the place. And today the goal is to prevent the loss of lives and to make sure that you, your family, and their families are safe and are educated on disaster preparedness. So I just want to see with show of hands. I'm going to take a look at my screen. I'm going to ask some questions, and if you're in the chat, go ahead and use raise your hand or something. And then if you're in the room, I can't really see you, so Isaac, if you can unfuzz your screen for me so I can see the audience, I'm going to ask some questions.
Yes.
Perfect. Great. Oh, keep the camera on. There we go. So, with a show of hands, who here feels prepared for an upcoming disaster? Anybody? One?
Nobody.
Yeah, not so much. A couple of people. Okay, so not as many as I would like. So that's okay. How about this next question? Have you discussed getting prepared with your family? One, two. Okay, so maybe not on everybody's mind. That's okay. Here's another one. Do you have a 72-hour minimum disaster supplies on hand? So do you have food? Wonderful, Mary. So one person, I know at least one other person in the audience does. Who here has an emergency action plan? Even if it's just your own, you know, an idea. One, I see one in the back there in the room. Great. And who here gets emergency alerts? This can be public alerts, this can be statewide alerts. Okay, one, maybe two. Okay, so some of these things are going to be new. This is great. Okay, we're going to be getting a really foundational knowledge today. And I have one last question. How many of you have friends, family, or neighbors that may need additional assistance during an emergency situation? Basically, other elderly neighbors or folks who are older than you, children, people with disabilities. How many of us here have folks who need special consideration? One, fantastic, okay. Yes, good. So, and I'm sure as we think about these things, the answers to these questions will become more and more yes, okay? We will think about people who may need our assistance, friends, family, children who we want to include in our emergency plan. Really just the idea of we're starting to think about these things. So, this slide is really important. How to prepare for an emergency, the 5 basic steps. If you take anything out of my presentation today, I want it to be these 5 steps. So if you're taking notes, write these down, okay? Step number 1 is get alerts. You need to be informed and you need to know what to do. Step number 2, make a plan, okay? You need to protect your people and yourself and not get in the way of other emergency responders doing their job, okay? So step 2 is make a plan. Step 3 is have a go bag, okay? I know this was mentioned earlier during Isaac's presentation. Somebody was describing it, which is kudos to you, that's great. So step 3 is make a go bag, and this is going to have things that you need to survive, to thrive, to prove your identity, be able to barter and trade for goods. It's going to have a variety of things to keep you safe. I'm going to look at the chat here. We have some questions. Great. Step number 4 is build a stay box. A stay box is something that you have in your home that has all of the essential things you need to stay in place, shelter in place, and that it will include a variety of things. So we're gonna go over each one The more prepared you are, the more prepared you can help others to be, which helps to prepare our community as a whole. So the more prepared everyone is, the better allocated resources can be, and the safer everyone is together. So really disaster preparedness at the end of the day is a community effort, okay? So one more time. Step 1, get alerts. Step 2, make a plan. Step 3, have a go bag. Step 4, build a stay box. And step 5, help each other, okay? And just a word of help, this is a workshop series, so we're going to be going over all of these in much greater detail in the weeks to come. So make sure you come to our next workshop. So let's move on. Step number 1, okay, emergency alerts. So we saw a few people who got emergency alerts, not everybody, and that's okay because we are going to work towards that. So, for your emergency alerts, there are a few ways that you can go about this. And I think one of the easiest ones for most people is to find your local radio station. Who here listens to the radio? Either on their drive home, when they're at home, when they're at work. Do folks listen to the radio? No, but one no, that's okay. It doesn't seem too much. So, the radio is a great way of getting emergency alerts immediately. So something you can do is you can go, so we have Daisy who listens to the radio while she's driving. So even then, knowing your radio station that will provide you alerts or weather service can go a long way in pre-preparing you for a disaster or getting you information right away. And a way that we can find our local radio station that does this is through the listoscalifornia.org website. They have a bunch of resources. We partner frequently with Listos, and they're really good on giving all the kind of resources you would need. The second one, and for anybody who has a smartphone, which I'm sure many of us do, at least a large portion of us have a smartphone, is we can get free emergency alerts online through calalerts.org. So, and this is a website we can go on our phone, we can go on our computer, and we would be able to get these alerts directly to our phone. And I will provide a list of all the resources to you at the end of this presentation, and it will be posted on the SBSS website. Something that's really pertinent for us here in California is earthquakes. And while it may seem like we won't know until the very moment that an earthquake happens, we can have a little bit of an idea. And that's because it monitors all around the state. So we can sign up for earthquake alerts and information using the website here, myshade.berkeley.edu. And it's a really cool website. It gives you a little ping every time there's an earthquake, and you can see in real time what's happening in our subduction zone and in our fault lines, because as we know in California, we are smack on a fault line. We're actually in between fault lines. Another one that's really important for us is to know about active wildfires and power shutoffs. So with wildfires, there comes a whole slew of other issues. It can be the air quality, it can be visibility, it can be heat, it can be the actual fire itself. So it's all these things. And what we want to do is we want to be informed whether or not we are in a medium locale of wildfire. It can still affect us because, as I said, air quality. So we can get that at response.ca.gov. And the last one, which Isaac talked about, was 211. This is a super important and easy thing to do. 211 has so much information and so many resources for everything. So it's not just emergency alerts. We can also get resources if we need extra support because we are disabled. We can get extra resources if we are unhoused or we are hungry. 211 can really point us in the right direction to getting the support and the help we need. And remember, as a community, the more we are prepared and the more we can prepare our community, the better off we are. And if you do use social media, please consider following CORE online, either Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have a few social media accounts out there. So find us, add us, and be a part of the change. So, step number 2 is making underlining your emergency action plan. And there are 4 things that I think that we can really focus on to make this plan work for us, okay? And you'll see those in these little bubbles here. Can everybody see what's going on in the bubbles? It's a little small on my screen, so as long as you can see it, I'm happy. So, step number 1 in making our emergency plan is getting connected and protected. What does that mean, Paul? So it means collecting all of our emergency contacts. This can include all of our loved ones, okay, and it should include all of our loved ones, including children, aunts, uncles, family by choice, and out-of-state contacts. And out-of-state contacts is a big one. And I'm going to pose this question: why do people think that we should have an out-of-state contact? Anybody in the room or on the Zoom? Can't see. Okay. Well, we want an out-of-state contact because if our phone lines go down, if our power goes down, but we still say have access to a landline, we have a centralized location that everyone can communicate and find out if people are safe. Yes, so thank you, Mary. So Mary said in the chat to communicate with someone who is not in the impacted area. Precisely. We want to have an out-of-state contact so that we have someone to communicate with that is not impacted by what's going on regionally. Number 2 in our action plan is our evacuation action, okay? So we want to know, how do we evacuate if we need to? Or how do we evacuate and get home if we need to? Because sometimes, say we're at the store, we're at our favorite grocery store, and an emergency hits. We have 2 options. We stay in shelter in place, or we have an evacuation plan and we're able to get home because we know our local route. There are a few things to consider when making our evacuation action plan. We have to follow the guidelines of authority, so we don't want to be going somewhere if authority is saying don't go. You need to shelter in place. There's a variety of reasons for that we will get into in our next couple of workshops. There may also be a need for different evacuation routes. Say one street is flooded and there's a power line down in another. Well, we have to find another way home. So finding different ways to get to the same location can be a lifesaver. It can keep you safe, it can keep your family safe, and it can keep everybody together swiftly. We also need to be prepared with our go bag and our go bag and our pet bag. And what those are, I'll get into the next slide, but being prepared includes having stuff on your person, having stuff in your car, maybe having stuff in your children's car, or whoever drives you around frequently. Having these things is just going to help you be prepared and safe. And you need to know where to go. So if you just need to know how to get where you're going and be clear about how you would get there. That's all I'm getting at with this evacuation action. The third substep of this making our emergency action plan is resource directory. So we want to be well informed and write down all of the important local contacts we can think of. This can include 211, you can't see my hand, 211, it can include the fire department, the police station, water and power, because we may not be able to access something online that we need, but we're able to access them via the telephone line. So having these local organizations can go along. The next is support organizations. So if you are somebody who needs extra consideration or needs extra resources, knowing who that is as an organization or point of contact at that organization will help in the long run, because this person will have specialized resources that you as an individual need. It can also be local food banks or local churches that you know you'd like to partner with or go to, and know that you have an extra community there. Okay, so you're not just getting this information today, you're getting this information and being able to share it with your greater community. So you are now part of that support organization. And the last step here, and this one I cannot emphasize enough, is practice and improve. Okay, get your kids, get your grandkids involved. If you're a great-grandparent, that's amazing. Get them involved, get your pet involved. Have a plan and You can figure out how you want to do that on your own, and we'll go over some ways of doing that when we have that specialized workshop. But knowing what to do and being prepared in knowing what to do and having practiced it are two very different things. So when you leave here today, start thinking about these ideas. And then take stock every few months. You always want to improve and just double check that you're doing what you need to do and you have the right stuff. So step 3, know your state. So I'm not going to belabor this point for time's sake, but know multiple evacuation routes and in your most frequently traveled areas. So how do you get home from your religious community? How do you get home from your doctor, your grocery store, your favorite entertainment venue? The idea being you need to have a general idea of how to maneuver in the environment. And LA is kind of unique in that we have a lot of traffic, things can go really bad, really fast. So, these things change on the fly, but we want to be slightly prepared. And if you don't have a car, knowing who your local transit agency is can go a long way in keeping you safe. And again, 211 and the American Red Cross can also help to point us towards shelters and safe places to evacuate. This map here is just kind of an idea of how to break down your local area into chunks that you can plan for. Okay, so preparing for a go-bag, this one is near and dear to my heart. What is a go-bag called? At its most basic level, a go-bag is a bag packed with survival supplies and kept ready for use in case of rapid evacuation. It usually has 3 days of food and water, at least 1 week of medication or other specialized supplies, and a few unique pieces that we want to add in there. This can include documents. So we may not think about it, but we need to have copies of all of our important paperwork. We want to have copies of our social security card and our passports, our license, maybe the deed to a house, or a business license, or something, family photos. The idea being we want to have extra copies of things that keep us safe and also verify who we are, because I don't know if you know anybody, but I know a few people who lost everything. And I say everything in a natural disaster, like the Paradise Fire. A friend, he lost his entire life. It took him years to get everything back. And he struggled because of that. So be prepared with documentation. Have cash. Cash is king and goes a long way. So it's, maybe some single bills, some fives. People say on average $300 to $500 is what you want to save. Do it slowly. It's just good to have. We also want to have a map. Okay, if the internet goes down, we're not going to be able to rely on Google Maps. So we want to be familiar with, and probably more familiar than I am with the paper map. So putting those skills back into practice is definitely a good thing. We also want to have a medication list. So this is going to be a list of all our medicines, what they're for, and any kind of health concerns that we have that we want to focus on. This is for other people to help us. Many first responders know what to look for when there's a go bag, and so if they have that information, they can support them quicker if they need help. And then, last but not least, in our go bag, we want to add a list of guides. So you can download this guide on the internet and on their website, and it has everything you need to be prepared. It's going to have a list of things to put in your go bag, your stay box, consider for your pets, and a variety of other resources to consider. Step number 4 is preparing your stay box. And at its most basic level, this is a box filled with survival supplies in case of an emergency where you can't leave. So this is going to be enough water for at least a week, maybe more. I like to keep 2 weeks on hand, and that's 3 gallons per day. So that sounds like a lot, but there are ways to get that water into a small space. So having enough water that is uncontaminated and safe. And we'll go over this in more detail in our workshop in the future. We also want to have food, okay? And really important here, you want to have food that you enjoy. It should be non-perishable. It could be dehydrated. It could be canned. It could be, in those little mylar pouches. It should be things that we don't necessarily have to cook, but that we will nobody wants to be eating something they don't enjoy on top of being in a disaster. You're just gonna suffer. So we want to make the best of it. And always have a little bit of candy or something just to brighten your spirits. Sugar can go a long way in building morale. And last but not least in our go bag is hygiene items. And this can include trash bags, it can include a bucket, paper towels, toilet paper, sanitary wipes. The reason being, if we are flooded or our sewer system is down, well, where do we go? What do? We need to be safe. And so the way we do this is by basically developing a hand toilet and keeping everything contained. It's really important here that we consider sanitation every step of the way in our stay box during an emergency, because infection or anything can happen at any time in this situation. So the more we can do to keep things contained and safe, the better off we'll be. And a mess kit, have a way of cooking. I like to keep a butane stove in my stay box. It's something that you will see at, say, fancy restaurants or places where they're not cooking on a stove, but they're cooking on a little hot plate. Something that's not electric can go a long way in helping you to enjoy a warm meal when you may not be able to. So special consideration, I touched on this earlier, Isaac touched on this earlier. If you are somebody or know somebody or are friends and family of somebody who is differently abled and needs special support, make sure you consider that in your stay box and your go bag. This planning of equipment is super important. So, it could be having alternate ways of communicating with people. It could be having extra gloves or all-terrain wheels for a wheelchair. It could even go as far as having extra spare pair of special shoes if you are somebody who needs those, or a pair of orthopedics because walking for too long or severely hurts your feet. Having extra gear will help keep you safe and make sure that you aren't stranded because the battery on your power chair died. So making sure you have a plan for other assistive devices is really important. And then also plan for transportation if you need help. So getting in contact with your local agency that maybe gets you to and from your doctor's appointments or to other places. Having a good line of communication with them will help you be prepared to evacuate and they will know what to do on their end. So I talked about this a little bit, and I'll just briefly touch on some of these things. So more special considerations. If you say have vision loss, my prescription is quite high. I cannot see without my glasses whatsoever, so I need to have extra contacts and extra glasses with me. But for somebody who is fully blind, they may need a way of communicating or a braille clock or a way of knowing what's going on. Maybe an extra white cane or boots for their dog. If they have a guide dog, having some all-terrain boots can help keep their guide safe. If you have hearing loss, having a pen and paper handy at all points in time, very important. Additional hearing aids or batteries for your hearing aids, or ways of charging that, having an extra charge stick if your hearing aids are rechargeable. Visual cue cards if you need to, be really quick with your communication. And say, as I was saying earlier, reduce mobility. So having extra battery backups, having some heavy gloves if you're in a wheelchair and you have to manually maneuver yourself. You don't want to be getting glass or nails or any kind of debris in your hands. So having some nice sport gloves will help, or even having a tire patch kit. So in the off chance that you do have to evacuate, run over something, well, you can patch that up relatively quickly if needed. And step 5, and I've been touching on this the whole time. So this is building your support network. So you want to be able to self-identify who is your support network, who are your neighbors, who is the building management for the apartment building you live in. What are their skills? Everybody has something they bring to the table in an emergency situation. So being really clear on what you bring and what they bring is of something called CERT, which is Community Emergency Response Team. They do classes, they do get-togethers, really great organization and program to get connected with. And then there are a few particular organizations that deal with this kind of stuff, including ADRC, who work in the Central and South Los Angeles region for the aging and disabled population, so they have resources. They've got transportation resources, short-term services, ways of coordinating you with other resources that you may need or organizations. So again, just being aware of who in your community offers what and what organizations in your community offer what and how you can utilize those resources effectively. All right, so we are at the end of my presentation. So to summarize, older adults may face more potential risk during a disaster situation for a variety of reasons, and so you really want to be prepared. And the 5 key steps to being prepared. And remember, this is the thing I want you to take away. Step 1, get alerts. Step 2, make a plan. Step 3, build your go bag. Okay, you can start thinking about this now. Step 4, build your stay box. And step 5, build your support network. Everybody coming together to be prepared and help our communities. These are the resources that will be posted online. I mentioned everything on this page during the presentation, but you can check that out later. It's Q&A time. So I am going to stop sharing my screen, but I will keep my face on the screen, and we can go through any questions that people have, okay? So, do we have any questions either in the audience or at the SBSS group? No? Looks like I noticed that. Isaac, can you see if there's, I can't totally see if there's any questions. It looks like no hands are raised.
You guys. Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, perfect, okay. So that's my presentation. Take it away, Isaac.
All right. Oh, you have a question? There we go. Yeah, we got a question.
Talk about it.
Oh, that's a movie.
Hello, hi.
Thank you.
Right now I live in old apartment in Los Angeles, Koreatown. My question is that we normally we know that earthquake, during earthquake we should hide under desk with safety cap. But my old apartment, I think we should move out immediately. Then better than staying old apartment that may be destroyed. So, what is better?
You guys have Paul?
I got most of it, so if you could just give me one repeat that.
Yeah. So she essentially was asking that she's been told that during an earthquake event that someone should take cover, wear like a safety helmet, or just get under cover during an event like this. Because she believes that in situations like that, why shouldn't she just evacuate the area?
Excellent question. So I'm going to, without going into too much detail, the one, we want to listen to local authorities on whether they advise us to shelter in place or to get to another location. So they're going to have a better idea than us on the scope of the issue. But the reason often that we want to stay in shelter in place during an earthquake is that the earthquake is not the only thing that is putting us in danger, right? As Daisy put in the chat, there may be aftershock. There could be down power lines. So say, on the off chance that you decide to leave during an earthquake or post-earthquake, you could run into an aftershock. You could step incidentally into a small body of water. house came down, power line, well, you just electrocuted yourself and passed away because you wouldn't have known that there was electricity, there was an active live current going through there. So it's often potentially safer for us to stay in one location than go too far out. But we just want to listen to local authorities. I know I had a couple questions here in the chat. So Mary asks, is there a comprehensive manual for programs that serve older adults that address fire, earthquake, water, etc.? Looking for a comprehensive manual of how to, for all different circumstances and supplies recommended for rescue and evacuation. It's kind of a mouthful. Mary, to answer your question, Listos, California, absolutely take the recommendation one at a time. So Listos, California and Cal OES, which both are linked in the presentation that I provided today and the ones that Isaac provided today, will have comprehensive manuals for all different types of disasters and also different groups of people. So it will have ways of addressing for older adults these disasters, or for children. If you have a loved one who is houseless by choice, perhaps, you can help them to understand how they need to keep themselves protected. So check out online, look at the links that we provide, and that should provide a lot for you. We have Rich R. He says great presentation, and it feels a little overwhelming. So how do you encourage us to get started? Rich, that's an excellent question. So I'm going to go back to the beginning of my presentation. The very first thing you should do is be informed. Get alerts. So if you do 5 things today, or if you do 1 thing today, go get alerts. Go start to explore these websites. And start small. You can, do these 5 steps that I discussed, and once you get alerts, sit down with your partner and your kids and make a plan. There, on the Listos guide, there's actually a section that walks you step by step to getting that plan and to building that plan. So it's really helpful to explore some of these resources to get a better understanding. The sooner you do it, the better, but you don't need to do all of it at one time, okay? The sooner you do it, the better, but you don't have to do it all at one time. You don't need to be overwhelmed. Any more questions?
Hello, alright, one last question, because I know it's almost time for your guys' slides. Alright, so we got a great question. Can you get your name, please? Oh, can you get your name? Alright, so Emily got a great question. She wants to know what to do in an emergency situation, as she currently lives in a high-rise building.
Excellent question, especially for any of us who live in communal settings. So I would say the first is check with the management of your building and find out if they have a plan or if they have any resources or ways of addressing that as a community. The second is if they have suggested evacuation routes or support to get you, all the way to the ground floor, if elevators are out. And again, listening to authorities will be the best way for you to be safe. So if they say stay in place, stay in place. If they say you need to evacuate, having the knowledge that that is imparted by your manager, your apartment manager, will be really helpful. There are also specialized items you can buy to help you get to the ground floor in case of an emergency. But really just being prepared would be the first step in getting those ones, and then going from there. But to just add on to that, we will discuss, we can make a point of discussing that in more detail during our next workshop on making a plan. So I will make sure to write that down and we can address it for you later.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Paul. Can we get a round of applause for Paul? Super great. One for everything. I'll kind of wrap this up. Thank you guys so much for attending our course. I really appreciate it. It's all an effort of getting everybody informed in case there's an emergency. If you didn't get a chance to grab one of these packets, these are a great resource. As you can tell, these have portions that you can fill in yourself. We will be doing more presentations like this with local officials, people from systems made to help make emergency preparedness easier for everybody, and we'll have them speaking as a part of these presentations, and we'll help you fill out these forms to make sure you're prepared. So thank you guys so much for being a part of this. Go enjoy your